Last week was the 30th anniversary of the Hubble Space Telescope. NASA spent the day airing a bunch of documenting Hubble and the discoveries that it's made, beautiful images of the stars. So the next great space telescope, of course, will be the James Webb Space Telescope. It's supposed to launch next year. It's been greatly delayed and vastly over budget, but can you not hear me? Let's see. There we go. Technical issues. All right. Let me start over again. Welcome everybody to SpaceWeek for May 3rd, 2020. Am I the only? I'm the only voice here. Yes, very good. So let me start over again and get rid of this. There we go. All right. Last week was the 30th anniversary of the Hubble Space Telescope. NASA. There's no music anymore? Jeez Louise. Broadcasting, I swear. NASA spent a day airing a bunch of documentaries about the Hubble, the discoveries that it's made, the beautiful images that it's produced, and it's remains one of the greatest scientific instruments ever created, if not the greatest in the history of mankind. Of course, looking forward, the next great space telescope is the James Webb Space Telescope, which of course has been muchly delayed, bigly delayed, and vastly over budget, but is expected to launch next spring, in March 2021, from Kourou, French Guiana, on an Ariane 5 rocket. It has a complex has a complex unfolding sequence that it has to do because in order to fit, it's a large telescope. In order to fit it in the payload fairing of the Ariane 5, they had to do a bunch of origami basically to, compress it down, and once it's up there and in space, they do a complex series of, unfolding and expanding the heat shielding foil wings and unfolding the thing. If all of that goes as planned and it enters its intended halo orbit at the Earth-Sun L2 Lagrange point, which is on the far side of the Earth, away from the Sun, a very cold and quiet location, then it should begin providing, and I'm not sure what the timeline is on when it should start, like when its first light images should start arriving, but I would expect it no earlier than a few months after, after it launches, because it takes time to get its systems ready to go. In any case, if all of that works as planned, it should start producing some really fantastic infrared images for us. The main difference between the James Webb and the Hubble is that James Webb is an infrared telescope and Hubble is an primarily optical telescope. It looks at the, so it produces images in the visible light wavelengths, roughly, whereas James Webb is focused more on the infrared, which allows it to look through some of the intergalactic or the interstellar dust lanes that obscure our view of a lot of the core of the galaxy, and the infrared helps them look beyond that. So it's not going to produce the same sort of images as Hubble, but they will be fantastic nonetheless. And the entire astronomical and scientific community is very much looking forward to the results of that. So, like I said, we did not have any launches, but, oh, you know what? Let me bring something up. So there was a Starlink launch, not last week, but the week before. But last week, raw space, witnessed it for the first time. I saw my very own Starlink train flying overhead. It was, I was, at first I was looking in the wrong direction. I was looking like to the northwest where Venus was. Northwest, well, Venus was to the southwest. I was looking more toward Venus, and I should have been looking more toward the northwest, because I kind of glanced up and saw that the Starlink satellites were already directly over my head. So I quickly moved the camera and took a picture, if I can find it here. Oop, there we go. So, this is a combination of, I think, 5 images. So they weren't all in a perfect line. They were kind of offset a little bit, as you can see. But, yeah, there you go. There's, it looked like there were maybe 20 or 30. So I'm not sure how the dispersion, because they launch all in one big group of 60, and then they begin dispersing into their, separating themselves and dispersing into their target orbits from there. So I'm not sure if like a group of them split off and, zoomed on ahead or what, but it could have, there might have been 60, but it didn't seem like it. It seemed like there were maybe half of that. But in any case, so there's Starlink, and the previous night, the preceding night, I did a Star Trails time lapse. So what I did was I took my camera, set it up outside on a tripod, of course, with a timer, and had it take 30-second exposures all night long. And then I went and checked on it in the morning. Unfortunately, in the morning, I discovered that the camera was covered in dew from condensation. That's what dew is. Like the lens, the front element of the lens, the whole thing was just covered in dew, which is not good for electronics in general, but also it was obscuring the camera's view of the sky. But I'm not sure when the dew appeared, and obviously, despite the dew, the Star Trails time lapse worked out pretty well. I think some of the effects of the dew are those diffuse glows you see, so that the red glow in the corner and on the side was coming from like a neighbor's porch light, I think. Normally you wouldn't really see it that prominently, but I think that it was reflecting off of the dew on the lens, which is why you see it in the photo, as well as the glow on the right side was the upcoming sunrise. And I had to, like, after this sequence, the rest of the images, they got too bright. I had to cut them off because they got too bright. But anywho, soon, I hope, if we have a suitable clear night with zero chance of precipitation. So I went ahead and I got I don't have it in my hand right now, but I got a lens heater. What it is it's like an ankle warmer. It's a little strap that goes around the front element of the lens, and it's got a little USB cord. You plug it into a power source, like a battery pack, and it just warms up the lens so that the condensation so that the water vapor doesn't condense on the lens. Warms it up to a few degrees above ambient so that the rest of the camera might get soaked, but the lens element itself remains condensation free. And so yeah, if we have a good night coming now, I know springtime in North Carolina, it's very moist. But hopefully we have another good clear night coming up that I can test that out with, and hopefully we'll get a clearer view of the stars. Now, one mistake I did make when I did this time lapse or this sequence was I forgot to adjust my ISO. So I had it set for ISO 200, which is usually what you would use in bright sunlight. It makes for nice, crisp, clear images, but it requires a lot of light. So if you want to get an equivalent exposure with ISO 200 as opposed to, say, ISO 400, you need, a wider aperture or a shorter exposure, because a longer exposure, because it does, it's less light sensitive but more crisp. Normally for stars and stuff, you would want to bump it down to ISO 400, ISO 800, or if you have like a camera body / sensor, like a full frame camera that can support very high ISO and not look super grainy, like a full frame camera would be ideal for that, which I don't have. Then you could use like ISO 3200 or something like that, which is generally how you would, like, if you're going to take a picture of the Milky Way in a single shot, like with a landscape, the best way to do that is with a full frame camera, because it's got a big sensor that can drink in a lot of light, and a very high ISO, which will allow you to take a short exposure so you don't get star trails. And of course you would want to be in a dark sky location, which we don't have any of those near here. All right, moving on. SpaceX conducted the 27th and final test of their upgraded Mark III parachutes for the Crew Dragon. So they've been doing many tests over the course of the past, couple few years of the parachute systems, or the parachute system on the Crew Dragon module, and this apparently was the final test prior to, prior to actual production use, when, Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley, astronauts and SpaceX nauts, launch on the first, the DM2 mission of Crew Dragon on May 27th. So that's the big event coming up, is the first actual crew launch on the Crew Dragon, and it will in fact be the first humans to have launched into orbit from the United States for 9 years, because the last time was on the space shuttle in 2011. Pretty significant. And unfortunately, access to a lot of the viewing areas will be limited. The viewing areas in Florida will be limited due to the COVID stupidness, but we'll all be able to view it online, and of course I'll be streaming that for you. Also in SpaceX news, they let us know that the Crew Dragon module itself was undergoing final preparations. I'm not sure what that yellow ring is. It's cool looking though. It's a very beautiful craft. In other news, non-SpaceX, Virgin Galactic, which is Richard Branson's, I don't want to say pet project. I mean, it's a legitimate endeavor. It's just their progress hasn't been as dramatic as like SpaceX or even Blue Origin, who's actually doing semi-regular suborbital launches on their New Shepard. But there's Spaceship 2. So the Virgin Galactic model is, rather than rocket to orbit, they have a two-stage system where they carry their rocket plane underneath a carrier craft, a carrier plane. So they get up to a high altitude, and then they release the rocket plane, and then the rocket plane shoots more or less straight up into suborbit. So they're able to reach the Kármán line, which is the line of what's considered to be space, but they're not anywhere close to orbital velocity, so they glide and they come back down. So it's more of a joyride sort of thing. It's their business model is space tourism, which there's a market for, albeit maybe not a mass market. But anyway, I wanted to show you. I haven't even seen this video, but I wanted to show you this video of Spaceship 2 Unity, the Virgin Galactic carrier plane. Though obviously that was a drop test and not a suborbital launch test, but nonetheless they're making progress on the latest version of their craft, which is always good. In other news, non-vehicle related, we had a sort of close visitor from the outer reaches of the solar system. A smallish asteroid about the size of a school bus passed within about 3 million miles of the Earth a few days ago. There was a lot of hubbub about it. People were wondering if we were going to get hit, etc. But we were fine. It was something like 13 or 14 times farther away than the moon. And in astronomical terms, that's pretty close. But it wasn't even remotely close as far as posing a danger. But yep, it passed by us uneventfully and is now heading off to wherever its orbit takes it. I'm not even sure what its orbit is. You know, if I go back a page, maybe they have an orbital graphic. Here we go. Oh, okay, this just shows where it passed by. So here's Earth, there's the moon orbiting the Earth, and 2020 JA brought it. It makes it look like it came closer than the moon, but it was actually quite a bit farther away. All right. Looking ahead to this week, we don't have any. Excuse me. We don't have any launches, but we do have the Eta Aquarid meteor shower that peaks in 2 days on Cinco de Mayo, May the 5th. So if you are outside in the evening, look to the skies and you may just see an Eta Aquarid meteor. Actually, while I was doing my, while I was setting up for the Starlink flyover pictures the other day, I actually saw a meteor. It was, I don't know if it was one of oh shoot, I forget the names of the meteor ship, but in any case, it was a meteor. It was just a one-off. I just happened to glance over in the sky and whoop, there it went. Which was neat because, you know, normally I don't get a great view of meteors, but I mean, I don't have very good meteor RNG luck, random number generator luck. But I did not get a picture of it. Someday I will get a picture of a meteor, but the thing with meteors is they're so transient that like you can't do a long exposure of a meteor. It's here and gone within a second, so, or within even a fraction of a second. So you have to have a lot of light sensitivity. Maybe, you know, so my big upgrade this year was the computer, which you may have seen the live stream of me putting that together. If I had not done that, then my upgrade would have been a full frame camera, probably the Nikon D850, which would have allowed me to get some much better night photos because of the light sensitivity and the sensor size. But alas, that upgrade will come just a little further out than I might have hoped. So also this week, tomorrow in fact, May the 4th, may the 4th be with you, marks the 2nd anniversary of Starman Stream. So Starman, of course, launched on February 6th, 2018, but in Raw Spaceverse, I began my 24/7 live stream of Starman on May the 4th, 2018. And the stream got, like, it's undergone a few different URLs because of internet disruptions and YouTube glitches and things like that. But you know, with the exception of a few, you know, minutes or hours in between streams, it has run nonstop for 2 years as of tomorrow, 24/7, 365. So happy birthday, Starman's Cosmic Journey. May the trolls be with you. Let me see. Looking to the live chat real quick here. Let me start at the bottom. Parsing. Magic school bus. Yes, the magic school bus passed us by at about 3 million miles. Okay, so I'm not seeing any pending questions. Really? Have we been going for 30 minutes? That's nice. Okay, so I'll just offer some information. Let me go full again. So, whenever there's a Starlink launch, or whenever there's Starlink is talked about, I see questions regarding, like, along the lines of how do I see this? So there are two websites I can recommend. The one I use is heavensabove.com. That's heavens-above.com. You just put in your location and it tells you when the ISS is going to fly overhead, Starlink trains, other satellites, when you're going to see iridium flares, which are from the older generation of iridium satellites. That's a great website. I've literally been using it for almost 20 years. It's one of the old ones, and it's great. Additionally, a lot of people use n2yo.com. That's n, the number 2, and then yo.com to see when Starlink is going to be flying over their location. So either of those websites will do very well for you. Okay, somebody said that Maria Kutujan had a question. Are the companies Dynetics, SpaceX, and National Team already definitive or provisional structures for lunar trips? Aha! I forgot to. Thank you very much. I forgot to mention, and the reason why I forgot to mention is because I didn't have the article up in my browser to show you. But NASA made an announcement regarding the contractors they had chosen for lunar landing systems. That is, systems that will ferry people, hypothetically, from the gateway down to the lunar surface. And SpaceX, of course, was one of the winners. I don't have additional information on that. I can look it up and maybe tweet it, since that's the way most of these companies keep people up to date, is by twitting, those twits. As for Dynetics by L. Ron Hubbard, let's see. Dynetics is developing low-cost, reusable unmanned air systems for the defense for DARPA. Gremlins. Okay. I am not well educated on that topic. I need to look into that. Good question, though. I'll jot it down and look into it more. Thank you so much, Maria. I appreciate the contribution in ours. What is the Brazilian currency? Let me ask Wolfram. Wolfram, what is the currency of Brazil? Obviously not rupees. So, Blue Origin had their big... What in the world? That's bizarre. I asked Wolfram what the currency of Brazil was, and Wolfram's response was 25.59 Canadian cents. That does not make any sense at all. I don't know where it got that from. Anyway, so Blue Origin had their big blue moon, not blue moon, their blue moon, their big ball lander with the big fuel tanks or whatever, circle tanks, a few months ago. And off the top of my head, I do not know if they had to have been among the lunar lander choices, because that's what they've been focused on, is their lunar lander and their well, a lot of things really. Their lunar lander, their continued New Shepard launches, their New Glenn development, and their BE-4 engine, which is going to be used on both New Glenn and the new ULA rocket, the Vulcan. But let's see here. AP Chemistry Course asks, what do I think is the most important job SpaceX will do? Well, if they get Starship done, then that will really be the game changer, and that will allow us to, because it will be the most reusable and the most powerful rocket out there. And I think that that's what we need. And I think that that's what we need. Not only the payload capacity, the reusability, which will drastically reduce the cost, in order to get more heavy construction going on in space, which is what we need in order to really develop the space economy. Is we need more stuff up there, not just junk, but structures, you know. PK asks if there's any problem coming to Earth by the way of asteroids in the coming days. No, we're not. There's no asteroids threatening us right now. I'm not sure. I don't recall when Apophis is supposed to fly by, but it's going to come close, but it's going to miss us by a few tens of thousands of miles. I think it's actually going to pass within the geostationary satellite orbital range, but hopefully it doesn't hit any satellites, because those are expensive. Plus it would create a lot of debris. We definitely do not want debris in the geostationary orbital ring, because that's prime real estate as far as satellites go. Okay, thank you, Applebull, for that clarification. Okay, Applebull says Blue Moon is part of the national team. Blue Moon is the descent stage. Lockheed Martin provides the ascent stage. Northrop Grumman provides the transfer stage. And yeah, so there you go. So I think that will wrap it up for this week. Kitten in a box. Yeah, so remember, no launches this week, but let me look at the calendar. No launches this week. No launches that I'm aware of next week, like the week after. But the week after that, so in 3 weeks, is the biggie. That's the Crew Dragon DM2 mission with Bob and Doug. But in the meantime, I will continue trying to keep my eye on what is happening in the world of space. And if you have any more questions, feel free to ask anywhere. We've got Discord, we've got Twitter, we've got our Starman stream, we've got video comments. Just post whatever you got wherever you want, and we'll get to you. Thank you so much for coming, and I do hope you have a great and safe week. Stay healthy, And don't go too nuts as this quarantine business drags on. Take care, and I will catch you next week. Keep it raw, folks.